I'm telling you, it wasn't my fault.
You're in
Why
the
are you
middle
blaming
of an
me?
argument.
Because it was your fault. I'm
You have
sick of you never
so
taking
much to say.
responsibility. I am too.
You know
You are
exactly what you
twisting my words
feel.
again.
But before the words can come out, your throat tightens. Your eyes start burning. And then the tears come. And suddenly none of it matters anymore. Because the other person isn't listening to what you're saying. They're looking at you crying. And they say it. Why are you being so emotional right now? And you want to scream. Because you're not crying because you're weak. You're crying because you care too much to stay calm. Or maybe it wasn't an argument. Maybe it was a movie. A song that came on at the wrong moment. A friend's good news that somehow made you tear up. Someone raising their voice slightly. Not even at you. And people around you go quiet and give each other that look. And someone says the words you've heard your whole life. You're too sensitive.
Here's the truth nobody tells you. The fact that you cry easily has nothing to do with weakness. It has everything to do with how your brain is actually wired. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening inside you and why the people calling you too sensitive might be the ones missing something.
But before we go any further, have you ever noticed how some people can sit through the same exact moment that breaks you completely and feel absolutely nothing? Same argument, same song, same movie scene. They're fine. You're not. Why is that?
What if the difference between you and them isn't that you're broken, but that your brain is literally picking up signals theirs is filtering out?
There's a real biological trait called high sensory processing sensitivity. Around 15 to 20% of people are born with a nervous system that processes emotional and sensory information more deeply than average. Brain scans show that in these people, the areas responsible for empathy, awareness, and emotional memory are genuinely more active. Not occasionally, but all the time. This means you're not overreacting. You're reacting to more. The person who told you to calm down during that argument wasn't feeling what you were feeling. Not because they're stronger, but because their brain wasn't processing it as deeply. You weren't losing control. You were carrying more than they even knew was in the room. Now, let's go back to that argument, because I think this is the one that hurts the most. Not crying at a movie, that's easy to brush off. But crying when you're trying to defend yourself, when you have something important to say and your body just betrays you? Why does that happen? Why do the tears come exactly at the moment you need to be the most clear, the most strong, the most heard? Here's what's actually happening in your body during that moment. When you're in a conflict with someone you care about, your nervous system reads it as a threat. Not a physical one, but an emotional one. Your brain can't fully separate this person is angry at me from I am in danger. So it activates the same stress response. Heart rate rises. Breathing changes. And the emotional centers of your brain, the ones already more active in sensitive people, go into overdrive. The tears aren't weakness. They're the overflow. Your system is so full of what you want to say, of how much this matters to you, of how much you don't want to lose this person or this moment, that your body finds the only release valve it has. And the cruelest part, the moment you start crying, the other person stops hearing your words. They start managing your tears instead. So you lose the argument, not because you were wrong, but because your body felt too much, too loudly. And that's not a character flaw. That's the cost of caring deeply in a world that rewards people who can stay cold. So now comes the real question, the one you've probably Googled at 2 a.m. after a bad night. Can you actually stop yourself from crying in those moments? Or is this just how you are forever, and you just have to accept it?
You can get better at it, but not by trying to shut it down the way most people try. Clenching your jaw, staring at the ceiling, biting your tongue. These work sometimes, but they also send your brain a message. What you're feeling right now is shameful. It needs to be hidden. And over time, that makes the emotional charge build up even faster. The approach that actually works is this. When you feel the wave coming, in an argument, in a conversation, anywhere, exhale slowly and name what you're feeling internally.
I feel overwhelmed. I feel unheard. I feel like this matters too much to lose. That single act of naming activates your prefrontal cortex, the rational, language-based part of your brain, and it physically reduces the intensity of the emotional signal. You're not suppressing. You're not running away from what you feel. You're staying in the room with yourself, which is the one thing panic doesn't want you to do. It takes practice, but it is a skill. And sensitive people, once they build it, often become the most emotionally grounded people in any room because they've had to learn what others never had to. But I want to leave you with something before we close. Something I think you need to hear, especially if you've spent years trying to apologize for who you are. What if the thing that's made your life hardest is also the thing that makes you irreplaceable? Sensitive people are the ones who notice when someone is struggling before they say a single word. They're the ones who remember what you said 3 months ago that you thought nobody heard. They're the ones who feel your mood change in a room before you've spoken. They're the ones who make art, music, writing, things that make strangers cry because they felt it that deeply first. The world doesn't have too many people who feel too much. It has too many people who learn to feel nothing just to survive. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem was being handed a world that never taught you how to carry it. That's different, and it's fixable. So the next time someone tells you you're too emotional, you don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to explain the biology or the argument or why that song made your throat close up. You can just know. They're reading you through a lens that was built to reward numbness. You didn't become numb, and that took more strength than they'll ever understand. If this is something you've lived with for a long time, drop a comment below. Tell me the moment someone called you too sensitive, because you're not alone in this.